Peace and love, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Hope and Healing Sessions. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and on Sunday Hope and Healing Sessions, uh, here on the Matrix Healing page, and wherever you might be seeing us on Facebook, whether the Transcending the Matrix group or my personal page, what we're about is helping to bring healing, restoration, transformation, transmutation in every area of our lives, and we do this through the methodology referred to as transcending the matrix. Really powerful tool to aid in healing on any and every level, including healing of physical ailments and problems. Not limited to that. That's actually the side effect. Repair of broken bones, removing of tumors, and all of these other things that people have experienced as a function of transcending the matrix treatments are actually just the side effect of the deeper healing that's needed on a physical, on a mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual level. Okay. And so I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today to bring this into our experience, for me to have been able to be a vessel through which this came into the earth, and to be able to share this with you all for whoever may be interested. So today is Father's Day 2023, and our kind of focal point for today in the context of what this day is, Father's Day, is restoring the divine masculine. Restoring the divine masculine. And really, before I go too much further, I've got to give a shout out to my brother Spencer Murray, who speaking at Transforming Love Community today was really powerfully addressing the topic, the soul of a father. And so what we're doing here in today's session for the Sunday Hope and Healing session is restoring the divine masculine. And let me say this real quickly. Nothing divine actually needs to be restored in and of itself. That which is divine remains complete and whole. That doesn't change. What it really is that needs to be restored, greetings, peace and love to you, Curly Conscious King. You were there for that message. You could attest to the power of it. Really, nothing divine needs to be restored. What needs to be restored is our consciousness as it relates to this or that particular thing, right? God doesn't need to be restored to a state of glory. God has never left that place. The only place that that which is divine has been dethroned is within the wackadoodle nature of our own twisted minds. And so really, when we're talking about restoring the divine masculine, we're really talking about restoration and transformation in terms of our concepts as it relates to the divine masculine. Yes, it was a very powerful message today from Spencer Murray. At any rate, we're dealing with, at the end of the day, all of the work that we do. Last week, we dealt with how to not have to work so hard. There's work that we all have to do. That's a given. But most of the work that we're doing is not actually the work that we're called to do. A lot of the work that we're doing is working around the real thing. Most of the real work that we have to do to experience the level of life that we'd really love to enjoy is inner work. It's work on the inside, dealing with the heart and with the mind. That's where most of our work really is. And we're missing the mark when we're not operating in that context, when we're not operating within that framework. And so as we talk about restoring and do some healing as it relates to restoring the divine masculine, there are a lot of warped constructs that take place both within the mind of man and within the mind of woman as it relates to masculine energy. right? As it relates to that which is masculine. And so there's really nothing more masculine than fatherhood, I would say. But I really want to touch with this on this concept of divine masculine. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then we're going to do some healing as it relates to it. Okay. And so everything that we see in the physical world is relating to something that's going on in the non-physical world. All right. What we see in the physical realm is related to things that are happening in the non-physical realm. Okay. And so when we see this dichotomy of masculine and feminine, for instance, there are various archetypes for masculine and feminine. And while we typically refer to God in the masculine, there are also ways in which feminine expressions of the divine manifest itself also. And so when we think about provider, protector, God is provider, God is protector, those are dealing with some of the more masculine components, right? When we think of God being a place that we can go to for comfort when we're hurting, that's dealing with more of the feminine aspect. Now, the truth is that God is not a man or a woman. But a reality is that within all of us, we're made in the image and in the likeness of God. And there are things that are aspects of all of us according to how we were divinely created. Some of that we're in touch with, some of it we're not in touch with. And for everything divine, there's also a shadow aspect. Okay. And so I'm really going to try to not go too deep into this and not to talk too long, but I keep feeling that I might do that anyway. What we have come to recognize and what we've come to perceive as masculine is, in many cases, something that is not representative of true masculinity. Okay. For instance, in general, a man, and let me say this real quickly because I don't think I said this yet. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers. To all of the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Fathers need to be honored. Men need to be honored. It's a need that men need to have. Men need to be and feel honored and respected. And so the men need to feel honored and respected from the other men in their life. A lot of grown men are in prison right now because they were seeking some form of validation from a man in the absence of their father who wasn't there. The great majority of men in prison didn't have their father active in their lives, and they sought some sense of approval, some sense of being seen, some sense of being recognized, valued, and respected, and often turned to gang activity. That was a place where they could feel embraced, be seen, honored, respected. A lot of times men behave in certain ways in order to receive some level of respect, some level of honor. And in some cases, and in many cases, often do things that will lead one away from one's true nature, cause one to hide who one truly is, because who one truly is doesn't get accepted so easily. And so Chris Rock said something in one of his stand-up routines, that only women and children are loved unconditionally. Men are loved unconditionally. For a man to receive love or to be shown some love, he's got to provide something. He's got to add some value somewhere. Whereas, men kind of universally understand that. The reality is that if a man isn't showing up in a certain way, he's seen as less than a man. If a man isn't showing up in a certain way, he's seen as less than a man. And what happens is that the way that men frequently get accepted, recognized, honored, respected is by stepping away from his own divine masculine aspect and operating within his shadow self, within shadow expressions of the masculine. And so, and many times, the reality is every human being has some form of insecurity, or some form of fear, some form of anxiousness, some form of pain that may show up in their lives in different ways. But for a man frequently doesn't get the luxury of really honoring that. Because when a man does, a man is typically seen as weak by both other men and by women. And that causes a man to end up not being and feeling respected, and even worse, being disrespected, which is just about the worst thing that you could do to a man, right? And so in many cases, a man gets out of touch with this divine masculine nature because he's having to cover something, wear a mask, if you will, to behave in a way that will be seen as more acceptable. All right. And then also, again, with many women, this is reinforced, unfortunately. And there's a certain perception of what a man looks like, what a man does, what a man doesn't do. And so it's not really acceptable for a man to feel a certain way, all right? Unless that's anger. That's really just about the most accepted feeling a man is able to have, in terms of an uncomfortable feeling. And so what happens is then all of this negative energy ends up building up and ends up being manifested in different ways. And sometimes it manifests in a father procreating a child but not being there for the child, because I'm feeling like I'm gonna go down the whole rabbit hole. I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I want to do some healing that's actually going to help restore within the consciousness of both man and woman the divine masculine, and be able to see, recognize, value, embrace, and accept that. Restoring the divine masculine in our awareness so that we can value the divine masculine rather than putting the focal point of attention on covers of masculinity. Right? Where a man is frequently expected to project confidence, a reality is a lot of times it's a fraud. Okay. What gets the respect is putting on certain airs that look like confidence. Right? A lot of times what's seen as strong, even what women see as strong, is being loud, is being vocal, That's not a strength at all. In a lot of cases, what it really is a mask covering weakness and insecurity. Okay. We talked last week. I think I don't think that was in the Sunday Hope and Healing session, but when I spoke at Transforming Love Community uh, last week, talked about how we get this sense of over independence, and one of the ways or one of the reasons that we end up not really experiencing God working on our behalf a lot of times is because we've got an overly independent mindset. We've got an overly independent attitude. And that really, again, is a trauma response, a way of responding to pain that we've experienced to give us this sense based on the pain that we felt from not having someone show up in a way that we wanted or needed them to. And then, as a way of coping with that unmet need, we tell a different story that we didn't need that in the first place, and we don't need that now. We don't need anybody else. We can do whatever we need to do all on our own, which is actually not true at all. We were made to exist in community. We were made to exist in support of one another. We were made to exist in relationship with each other. And so we sometimes develop that mindset as a way of protecting ourselves and dealing with, it's really just a coping strategy to cover our vulnerability and to cover our pain, rather than letting it be exposed, let the air get to it so that real healing can actually happen. So I'm gonna stop talking. We're just gonna get into the healing. This will resonate with some people consciously, others, I don't know. But everybody can use this healing. I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact. So God, I know you to be a healer, a restorer. And through the union that we share through your Holy Spirit and through the power of your pure love, I call forth your healing on the behalf of everyone who's tapped into this, anyone watching, whether live or on a playback, for the point of neutralizing the causal root of all misguided perceptions as it relates to manhood and masculinity, from the point of the causal root in the entire energetic structure of every strand of DNA and every cell of our body, every particle of our existence, and all dimensions of our lives, and transmuting that into and replacing it with complete restoration of the divine masculine and our awareness, being able to see the divine masculine at work in its true authenticity. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. Okay, so let's look at misguided socialization. There's been a whole lot of that. Okay, misguided socialization and errant expectations. All right, so we're going to transmute that through the power of and the light of God's love, and transmute that into receptivity to being transformed by the renewing of our mind according to God's idea of the divine masculine. Okay, let's look at addiction to the lower nature of the masculinity, okay, or the shadow aspects of masculinity, or skewed aspects of masculinity. Alrighty. and transmute that into, let's transmute that into, um, actually, I want to deal specifically real quickly on 138 million grid lines of the matrix related to this particular issue. Okay. How it's reinforced in media, how it's reinforced in relationships, how it's reinforced in family structures, how it's reinforced in relationships between man and man, between man and woman, between child and man, between man and child. Alrighty. Let's look at addressing the father wound. We don't generally recognize this, but the place where the father wound really starts, and there are a lot of people, male and female, that grew up with their father absent. Maybe he was absent because he was always running around working. Maybe he was absent because Papa was a Rolling Stone, but for whatever reason, ended up being physically absent or emotionally absent. Maybe he was physically present, but he wasn't there in his heart and in his head. Okay. So let's address that. Bring restoration to the places of sadness and disappointment, dealing with the absence of Father in the way that you perhaps would have wanted or needed him to have been there. Let's look also in terms of absence of Father due to death. And welcome in the light of God's love into the place where that wound is held. Welcome the light of God's love and grace and comfort into the space of grieving. Okay. Let's look at anger towards Father. Anger toward the Father who wasn't there. Anger to the Father who was there, who behaved in a way that you might not have jived well with. And let's look at any self-hatred in connection with father figure not being what was desired. I want to also look at specifically with this one, with those who ended up being with men who modeled their absent father and ended up not being physically available or emotionally available, not being available in some way. And let's deal with the addiction to actually, let's address the trauma bond as it relates to that. All righty. So let's get into the trauma that's related to let's deal with the trauma bond that's related to a man that one may be romantically interested in, who subconsciously reminds them of their absent father. or a father that did not respond to them in a way that led them to feel safe or protected or cherished and honored, valued. All right. Now let's deal with something I want to deal with right now. Something I want to deal with right now is those who felt a void from the absence of being able to father in the way that they may have liked. This could be someone who hasn't been able to have children for whatever reason, or has not had children for whatever reason, but may have wanted to. The person who's the father whose child may have died. The stepfather who wasn't really able to father in the way that he would have liked to have. Whether based on the presence of the biological father or based on restrictions that were put in place by the biological mother. I don't know if this relates to anybody, but the father that wasn't able to be the father that he wanted to be because he was locked up, because he always had to be away on business, or because his own father wasn't there and he just didn't really know how to be a really good father, or his own father that was there that just taught him lessons that just weren't good lessons. And so he didn't know how to go about fatherhood properly based on what was modeled to him or what wasn't modeled to him. All righty. Let's deal with the mindset of the perception that for a man being vulnerable is a weakness. That one cannot feel safe in the presence of a man who allows himself to be vulnerable, or one cannot respect a man who allows his vulnerability to be seen. I believe we've had whole presidents of the United States of America who much of their behavior in office was based on their relationship with their father and endeavoring to live up to something for their father. Okay. I won't name those particular presidents, but there have been some recent ones who I very strongly perceive that to be the case. All righty. Let's look at, in terms of the divine masculine, let's look at the aversion to the divine masculine based on patriarchal dominated society. Let's look at it from the context of the rise of the divine feminine, uh, and I believe that feminine nature is being, in different ways, at least girl power, uh, BGM, and all of these wonderful things that are appropriate in terms of women feeling empowered. But to be able to recognize that there's no competition in terms of divine masculine and divine feminine. In fact, in a lot of cases, a lot of women are behaving in lower nature masculine ways, um, which isn't really a particularly good thing either. All righty. All right, so let's look at work perspectives in terms of feeling like either masculine energy has to win or feminine energy has to win. That is a profound misnomer. There's no competition between divine masculine and divine feminine. They both need to be operating in the divine context. The problem is when folk are operating in their lower nature, which is what folk frequently do, and then end up getting into all of these, what we call power struggles. They're not really power struggles. We're competing for energy, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in terms of the bigger scheme of things, in terms of men and women competing for energy, right? Competing to be seen. All right, so let's actually boost us all to be able to see and recognize the divine masculine at work and give honor and respect to that. And truly be able to honor the men that are operating in their divine nature, and to cherish and celebrate that instead of, other aspects that we tend to want to celebrate more. All right. Dealing with the lower nature. All righty. Let's look at transmuting what Chris Rock talked about in terms of a man doesn't get to be loved unconditionally. That doesn't mean that a man shouldn't show up as a man. I'm not saying that at all. But I can guarantee you that there's still a bunch of Father's Day cards in the stores today at 1:34 p.m. Eastern time. That's what the time is where I am on Father's Day. You would never find that to be the case a couple days before Mother's Day. Fathers just don't get that kind of shine and that kind of honor. Even when both parents are active in the home, child goes away to school, who usually ends up taking the phone and doing most of the kind of conversing? It's usually mom. Dads just don't get that same kind of honor. It's perceived as they're doing what they're supposed to do, and a lot of times how a man typically feels his value is in providing and things of that nature. Which is an aspect, certainly. But it's frequently taken for granted. It's easy to do that. Okay. All righty. Now let's get into the aspects within us that keeps us from honoring our Father. It could be resentment, it could be anger, it could be hostility, it could be unforgiveness. We want to transmute that unforgiveness into acceptance of what is. Acceptance of what is. That's not the same thing as condoning. But a lot of our problems that we experience, even that manifest as health issues, are a function of not accepting what is. Okay. All right. Let's look too at, I saw something, this was some time ago. Someone asked, a child asked a wise man, what is anger? And this wise man responded, it's a punishment we give to ourselves for other people's mistakes. Isn't that something? And so let's look at our own sense of unworthiness that actually leads us to have these judgmental attitudes towards Father. Okay. And maybe Father wasn't there. Maybe Father was never there. Maybe Father never even acknowledged your existence. That's a tough one. That hasn't been my story. I'm blessed to have a father and a stepfather who are present in my life, and both of my grandfathers. I was blessed to have a relationship with them. But that's not everybody's experience. Far from it. Regardless of what our experience is, we're called to nonetheless honor our Father. I get that may be tough for some people. At the very least, acknowledge that you would not be here if it was not for him. Maybe your biological father will never be in your life for whatever reason. I want you to hold space within you for your sake, not just for your father's sake, but for your sake. Remember, this restoring the divine masculine is in terms of your inner beingness, right? And your perception. All right. This is about your healing, whether you're a man or a woman. Okay. Deep forgiveness of ourselves for the resentment or negative thoughts and feelings towards Father. Forgive ourselves for punishing ourselves in that way. All righty. Greetings, Karen. Good to see you in this space today. Hope to see you next month when I'm in Canada. All righty. Let's look at something I started to say earlier. I never actually said it. I thought it, but I never actually said it. We don't recognize it, but a lot of times the issues that we have with our Father are not rooted in our Father. They're rooted in feelings that we have towards God and feeling somehow abandoned or not taken care of by God, which is a very natural part of the human experience by being birthed into this physical world that's much different than the heavenly realm, right? And so feeling disconnected from God. Let's restore feeling connected with God, feeling divinely connected with God, and even go back in time throughout your adult life, throughout your teenage years, throughout your childhood, throughout the time when you were a baby, and while you were in vitro, of feeling completely connected with God even entering into and dwelling in the physical world, or existing within the physical world. Okay. All righty. Now, another thing, in order to be able to see and for the divine nature to be restored, means a restoration of our own divine nature. So a lot of times we tap into our ego. We're coming from the place of our ego, capital EGO, that part of us that tries to edge God out. Okay. And so because the part of us that tries to edge God out is continually seeking to do that in different ways, because when we fully align divinely, the ego dies, and the ego doesn't want to die. It has a tremendous fear of the loss of its own survival. And so it does all kinds of things and feeds your thinking all sorts of whack stuff in order to promote its continuance, which actually causes you to suffer, right? All right, so let's work on silencing the noise. Okay. And listening clearly to the voice of spirit. Hearing clearly the voice of spirit speaking, rather than the voice of the part of us that's trying to edge God out. Okay. All righty. I'm going to do a couple more and then we're going to wrap it up for today. All right. Let's look at I want to look at the family history right now. Going back 18 generations. I want to start off 18 generations of fathers, and then 18 generations that also include mothers as it relates to their thoughts, experiences, and attitudes as it relates to fathers and as it relates to masculine energy in general. I want to bring healing where that's concerned as well. Thank you. All righty. And let's look at future generations. Going 21 future generations. All right. Okay, that's looking better. All righty. And let's look at reframing our perspective of saying, you have any idea how much courage is required for a man to allow himself to be vulnerable and to be seen in a vulnerable state? What seems like masculinity is not showing signs of vulnerability. But that's the weakness. It's a cover, it's a mask, it's a scam. It's a way of protecting oneself out of a sense of fear. But if a man is actually allowing himself to be perceived in a vulnerable state and still hold true to his masculine energy, that requires a tremendous amount of courage to do that. A tremendous amount of courage to do that. And so for men, I want to actually boost that up for all men, of the courage to be truly seen, even in moments of weakness, or what could be perceived as moments of weakness. All right. And let's open our eyes to see divine masculinity. Let's open our spiritual eye to be able to see and recognize what divine masculinity actually looks like, and to be able to honor and respect that. Okay. All right. So that pretty much wraps us up for the healing I'm going to do in the session on that right now. So God, thank you that the divine masculine has never been out of tact in reality, but we haven't always been intact, and so we haven't always been able to behold it. We've not always honored it. But thank you for the healing that's taken place today that supports us in the endeavor to see the divine masculine restored in our own consciousness and to truly honor that. Thank you for all of the fathers today and for whatever honor they're receiving. May each father and each father figure continue to rise and grow in divine masculinity. I count this as so and as a done deal, and I thank you for all of these gifts of your divine love, and I affirm it's a done deal. Ashe and amen. All right, that pretty much wraps us up for today. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you. If you are at all interested in learning Transcending the Matrix, I'm more than happy to share this with you. It literally works miracles. It literally works miracles. If you want to be able to access God's healing power in the way that I'm blessed to, and the way that some others who are on the broadcast today are blessed to, reach out to me at Royce Fletcher Thomason on either Facebook or Instagram, or at Transcending the Matrix on Instagram. Also, feel free to, if you're not already, to follow us on YouTube at Matrix Healing. It's all one word, Matrix Healing. And hit the notification bell so that you're made aware of when we're going live or when content is being posted. We're all about elevating the consciousness of humanity. The more whole we each are, the better it is for everybody. That's just straight up the truth. The more aligned we are, the better it is for all of us. And the more we can actually help other people in a spirit of just us being our authentic, operating in alignment with our own divine nature. Yeah, we got a human nature too, but we also have a divine nature. And the more we're operating in the context of that divine nature, the more other people around us get freed up too. And so that's what this work is really all about. Yes, it manifests in terms of physical healing and elimination of pain, physical pain and all of that, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But to me, what's even more wonderful is these things that it does for us in terms of our own soul and our own spiritual evolution. So again, if you want to partake, reach out. If you value what it is that we're sharing, what we've shared today, and you feel blessed by this content, you'd like to sow into what it is that we're doing, we certainly welcome that and give you an opportunity to be able to do that. You can do so via Cash App at Royce F. Thomason. Cash App at $ Royce F. Thomason. Or you can also do that via PayPal at Royce Thomason at yahoo.com. Either one of those ways work. I think Zelle is the same too. But anyway, happy Father's Day to your fathers, to all of you, to your fathers, whether your father is still in the earth realm or not, honor to him. I want to honor your father right now. For all of you who are fathers, happy Father's Day to you. And to all of the men who are stepping up and serving as a male role model to some young person, maybe you have children, maybe you don't, but you're serving as a male role model or some type of father figure to a young person. Kudos to you, and I honor you. All right, again, that wraps us up for today. But as always, as we are endeavoring to grow, to be the best versions of ourselves, as we're looking to enter into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, until next time, I send you forth with peace and love. Catch you next time.